Welcome back, everybody. It's your boy Sean, the American in Krakow, back in his studio, not on his motorcycle. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about riding in cool or cold weather and some of the things that I use to allow me to ride in cool or colder weather deeper into the season. Anyway, let's get at it. All right, so riding in cold weather. What is the big deal? What's the most impactful thing about riding in cold weather that can impact us as a motorcycle rider? The number one thing is the wind chill. So what is wind chill? I'm not a scientist, I'm not a meteorologist, I'm not going to go into some crazy detailed explanation of it, but basically, we all know, right, our body, we radiate heat. And as we radiate heat, there's a layer of warm air. It's just a little bit off of our skin that helps work as an insulation or an insulating barrier from the temperatures around us, and it helps keep our body temperature consistent. Now, with wind, if I was to blow a hard gust of wind past my hand, that warm barrier of air has now been blown away. And what that means now is without that layer of insulation, the air temperature, the air moving across my skin, can effectively help cool it down much quicker than it was when I had that barrier of warm air around my skin. That's wind chill in a nutshell. So how does that impact us as a rider? We are surrounded by high-speed moving air. And without the proper gear or layers around us, that air is stripping away that insulating barrier of air around us, and then additionally pulling the heat off of our skin, which in turn cools us down much quicker. There's a lot of charts out there. I'm going to post one up somewhere in the video, maybe over this talk right now, showing that the effect of air temperature to the speed that you're traveling and the effective temperature. You know, we're kind of in that season where it's not uncommon for it to be about 10 degrees in the morning when I get out. And if it's 10 degrees and I am going to, let's say, go somewhere a little bit outside of Krakow, I might jump on the highway. Highway speeds here are 140 kilometers an hour. 130, 140, but the speed limit is 140. At 10 degrees Celsius, if I am traveling at 130 kilometers an hour, the effective temperature of the air surrounding me is no longer 10 degrees, but about 3 degrees, maybe 2. So that's a big difference, right? You wouldn't want to ride your motorcycle in 2-degree weather. But that's what you're doing when you go out at 10 degrees without the proper gear around you to help protect you from that wind chill. How do we protect ourselves from the wind chill? There's a couple of simple, quick things that you can do that will definitely improve your experience of riding in cooler weather. The first things that you're going to want to look at potentially is your gloves. You know, summertime, I wear very either heavily perforated gloves or even mesh type gloves that allow all the airflow because I want to stay as cool and comfortable as possible when I'm on my bike. The moment it gets a little chillier though, the first thing you can do is change your gloves from summer or heavy ventilated gloves to something a little bit more appropriate. Now, you don't have to go out and get winter specific gloves. But most riders at some point or another, especially if they're riding in an area where the weather fluctuates and they might end up riding in some rain, is get some waterproof gloves. And if something is waterproof, it's generally considered windproof as well. So yes, moisture vapors can escape, but it's densely packed that the flow of air through is not enough to then start stripping away that insulating barrier of heat that your body is generating. So these are my Rukas that I wear once it starts getting a little cooler. These are Gore-Tex. They're Gore-Tex membraned gloves. So as soon as I put them on, I'm staying dry. But that in turn also helps keep me warm because it's preventing a lot of the airflow from stripping the heat off of my body. That's the first thing. This alone will help a lot because the first things that usually get cold are your fingers. Tip number 2 is getting windproof base layers. So here we have my freeze out pants. Essentially, it's a set of tights with a couple of different pieces of material on it. First, they're stretchy, but they're a little bit thicker than they're not like leggings. So there's some thermal property here that's going to help you retain some heat. On top of that, the front side of these pants, so now we're going to change to this kind of black material here that you see. This is a windproof material. So putting these under my jeans, I don't notice them, but this base layer of windproof under my jeans dramatically allows me to ride either longer in cooler weather or for short distances in pretty cool weather. 10 degrees, I would probably already consider putting these on under my riding jeans. And the same goes for a top. Now this is their original freeze outs. And it's the same concept. It's a slightly thicker fleece type material. And it's again going to give you some thermal properties of helping you keep warm. But the entire front of this shirt, so from the neck, and it zips up from the shoulder up to the neck here. So it makes it easy to put it on and then snug it up tight to your neck. So from the neck all the way down to about your waist, maybe just around your belly button area. It comes down from the shoulders, down the entire length of the sleeve, and around the shoulder. The backs are that regular fleecy type, sweater type material, stretchy. And this again, just putting this underneath my mesh jacket. So I'm still wearing a mesh jacket in this weather. And because I have the ability to keep the wind from getting to my body, this allows me to continue to wear my normal gear. I'm not doing anything fancy. And I'm riding in cooler temperatures. So what do you do if you're going to ride in some cooler weather or colder weather? Now we're talking about you want to get down into riding around 4 degrees Celsius, even hovering around 0. And that's still possible. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. I do it, especially for short runs. But there are some things that you can do to, again, make that same riding experience not uncomfortable and not miserable to get ready for. At that point, I wouldn't necessarily use all of the same things I was just using. I would use the waterproof gloves. I would still wear the base layer under my jeans, but now for the top, because, you know, if you can keep your core warm and operating properly, it will work to help keep your extremities warmer. So again, I'm still wearing a mesh jacket. I'm wearing that Climb Induction mesh jacket. So it's designed for summer wear. It's fully mesh. You can see light pass right through the jacket. So, you know, how do I stay warm in that in colder weather? Now, that's where this little guy comes in handy. Now, before anybody makes a joke and say this is my man purse, it is not. This is actually a North Face 800 count down, or 800 weight down jacket. But this guy right here, because it's quite small, I can just throw it in my bag and leave it in there if I'm not sure of the weather I'm riding in, or if I know I'm going to go riding out and it's cold in the morning already. I literally just put this on underneath my mesh jacket. Now, being that it's a North Face, it's a jacket designed for wearing in the winter, and that it's down, so it really, really insulates you very well from the cold temperature. It's already, to some extent, wind resistant. So putting this on under my mesh jacket in reasonable temperature, it's fine. It still allows some airflow in. It allows my body to not overheat, because this jacket is very warm and it is possible to overheat in this jacket. And you don't want to be fiddling with jackets, zippers, things like that while riding. So again, this under my mesh in, I don't know, 6 degrees, I'm riding comfortably for most of the day. Like around city speeds, no problem. And still with the mesh jacket, I have not switched out my jacket yet. What if it gets a little cooler than this? 4 degrees, 2 degrees. I would still wear the exact same setup, again, for riding through the city. But what I would do is I would add something like this. And this here is the Climb Zephyr. And depending on what site you're looking at, They call it a windproof shirt or a windproof jacket. I can ball this up into maybe the equivalent of a soda can, maybe a little bit bigger than a beer can, right? So it throws into any jacket, you can throw this into a big jacket's pocket, into your bag, whatever. But you put this on, and now you're 100% windproof, and it's complete. It's the entire jacket, front to back, top to bottom. It's all the same material. So you are fully sealed off from the wind. So I can put on my North Face, I can throw this over the North Face, and then put my induction jacket on over that, and I am very warm. So again, light, small things. You can throw them in your bag, throw them in your storage areas. They don't take up a lot of space. You don't even have to think about them. It makes a massive difference when it comes to the temperature. So how do you ride in even more extreme cold weather? Or if you want to ride in colder weather, but for longer distances. So for example, I do occasionally go to visit my children in the Czech Republic. That I think is about a 350-ish kilometer ride from where I am right now. And it crosses over the Poland-Czech border, so kind of where Poland, Czech Republic, or Czechia as it's pronounced now, and Slovakia kind of meet, which is on the tail end of the Tatra Mountains. So you're going through some highlands. The weather can drastically change and get much cooler in that section. But, you know, even at 10 degrees or something like that, I would do it. But then you start having to dress a little bit differently. We've talked about your fingers, your hands, but we haven't talked about your feet yet. Now, if you're talking about getting on the highway, doing some highway distance, there are some things that you should consider now, even looking at your feet. And the first thing I do is I switch from riding sneakers, which is what I normally wear, and I switch to something like these. Now, these are riding boots. They are also waterproof. And if they're waterproof, they're windproof. So that's the first step you can do. But before you get there, and unfortunately I didn't have the chance to dig them out of because I haven't dug out all my winter gear yet, is getting yourself a good thick pair of wool. And the key here is wool socks. The reason I say wool versus typical cotton is the way wool handles moisture. So your foot is now in a sealed leather shoe, and it's still generating heat. And it can get sweaty. And now that sweat, if it gets on your sock and becomes overly damp, will actually end up cooling your foot more than keeping it warm. Whereas wool will absorb and absorb and absorb moisture way longer than cotton or any other material. Like there's some synthetic materials like wool, I guess. But wool is always my go-to, merino wool particularly if possible. And that allows it to keep absorbing moisture and not give that dampness back to you, which in turn cools you down. So wool socks, boots. That's the first step if you're going to ride in long distance. I still do the base layer, the windproof base layer, but now in turn what I could do as well is below that, I might put on a pair of Under Armour like 4.0s or 3.0 thermal insulating like long johns. That will help keep that layer of heat to your skin, closer to your skin, then my windproof layer, and then again, riding jeans. Another trick that you can use if you don't have a set of windproof base layers is if you have rain gear, it's also windproof. So putting on your rain pants over your normal riding gear will also protect you from the wind. You still need some layers below that to insulate, to keep that layer of heat close to your skin. Now we start getting towards the chest and the hands again. So I'm going to talk about the hands first. I did mention these Ruka gloves that I wear for cooler weather. The one thing I didn't mention about them though, and I should have, is these are gauntlet style gloves. So normally I wear short gloves in the summer. So they just stop right at my wrist. They don't go much further than that. But then allows a lot of air to flow right up the sleeve of your jacket. So here we have a gauntlet glove. And that gauntlet glove means it comes up further past the wrist and it opens wide. So what I can do is, say this was my jacket, I could just kind of grab the back of that into my palm, slide the glove on, and now my sleeve is inside the glove. I have straps, so let me cinch that down, big Velcro straps, easy to work with the other hand as well if you're still in the glove. And now the wind is not going up my jacket, but going straight up the sleeve and beyond me. That's a huge thing. But as I mentioned, these are my cooler weather, not the cold weather. When it gets cold, you got to protect the digits. So that's when you start looking at something that's a little bit more insulated. And these are leather, so windproof, and they have Thinsulate in it. These are Danes, and you can kind of see this little thing popping up here. I'll talk about that in a second. But even without that, these are insulated gloves. So they have a layer of Thinsulate sewn in, between the leather and the inner liner. And that, again, is working as an insulation barrier to help keep that heat close to your skin and protecting it from escaping out the glove. Also, gauntlet style, big Velcro adjuster. So you can just kind of, again, grab that sleeve, just give it a tug in. You don't have to hold it the whole way, just enough to get it in, and then just pull the glove on and adjust your Velcros. But these gloves have an additional little trick to them, which I use when I definitely go out on the winter, on the cold, to go to Brno. And that is, they're electric. So they have this little plug here. There's two of them, one on each side. And it has a little tiny battery. You can stick the battery in there, you charge it up, stick it in this little pouch, put the glove on. The battery ends up somewhere under here, so it's not really in the way of your riding. And they keep you warm. There's a few temperature settings. There's a little button right there. And you click that, and it'll go from off to high temperature, medium, and low. I usually keep them on low unless it's very hot, or I'm sorry, very cold. And then I might crank it up to medium. The reason is, obviously, if you put it on high, it'll burn through the battery really quick. But this is the next big change for cold, cold weather. The next thing you can do, and I would suggest doing, is looking at your helmet. Most people ride in the summer. They try to get helmets with really good ventilation or great airflow so they don't overheat in their helmet. This is great in the summer, but if you're getting a lot of cold air in your helmet while you're riding in the winter, your head's gonna get cold. So, I ride my Shoei NXR, and then I just recently switched to the X Spirit 3. Both are, well, one is street oriented, one is track oriented, not designed for winter riding. So they do allow a decent amount of air in the helmet. And you can tell that usually the louder or noisier it is in a helmet, that usually means there's a lot more airflow going on inside that helmet. Now, if you look just behind me, there's that helmet, that silver helmet. I think I'm pointing to it right now. That's my Schuberth C4. I don't wear it often, but if I know I'm going to go out into the cold, I would put that helmet on. That helmet seals up well. When you put that on, you're isolated. You can hear the fact that you're isolated from the road. And the more isolated you are from the sound and the wind of the area around you, that generally means there's more insulation in that helmet. And again, that insulation to keep that air around your face consistent. So for me, I start looking at putting on a different helmet for really cold weather riding. So, we talked about changing to insulated gloves. We talked about changing the helmet for the really cold weather. And the last thing that I would do is I would switch away from my normal summer and fall or spring riding jacket, which is that mesh jacket. And I will switch to, I have a oversized leather jacket. It's a Harley Davidson jacket from when I rode a Harley. It's quite big. Like, I can put another full jacket on underneath that jacket and it's still comfortable to ride in. And that's what I do. So I will put on that jacket and then I can put on either the North Face with a windproof liner. Alternatively, I also have an electric jacket. It's a hunter's jacket, actually. It's from Milwaukee, the power tool company. They do a 12-volt electric jacket. So that jacket is big enough that I can actually wear that underneath the leather jacket with the insulated gloves, with either my layered of windproof underlayer, insulated layer, the jeans, or insulated layer, jeans, and a rain pant. And then again, the heavy leather boots with wool socks. And I am good to ride in down to 0 degrees for quite a way. So that kind of wraps it up for the gear that I wear to stay warm with extreme weather. And it's not a very big or extensive list of products that you need. For the most average rider who just wants to go a little further in, just getting some windproof undergarments and a pair of waterproof gloves will do you wonders. It will let you go way deeper into the season than you normally would. I will post some links up of the gear that I have in the description. I'll also try to post some locations where you can look up the wind chill effect on your body when you're riding, both in Fahrenheit and Celsius. And that should be it. Thanks for joining. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. You can get more content like this. Or when pandemic and the temperature gets a little bit better, I can get back to moto vlogging. And hit that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell to get notifications when I do post. And check out my Instagram. It's going to float somewhere around here, in a minute or so. Also, check out my other channel. I have a reaction channel, Cut and Paste Reacts, where I do reactions to videos on YouTube, music, car compilations, things like that. That's all. Thanks, guys. Peace.